Okay, welcome back to another episode where we're breaking down how diasporans can fund businesses back home without necessarily having to move back. So, in the last episode, we talked about the entrepreneurship through acquisition model, the silver tsunami, the opportunity where there are millions of business owners who have done the hard thing, they've built a business, but they've aged and they don't have a succession plan, but they're looking for a good human, right? Like you, like myself, to help them continue something that they started that they want to live beyond them. And that is a very noble thing. And in this episode, we're really going to break down the mechanics of an ETA deal, the roles you can actually play, and how you can actually fund these deals without necessarily having to move back. You can definitely live between two places. So part of what I wanted to break down is that these businesses are cash flow machines, right? That are kind of hidden in plain sight. You and I, we go to these different businesses every day where they're earning hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, if not more. And I think many of us working in corporate jobs, we've learned the systems, the structures, the technology, the processes that can help bring these businesses to the next level. And so breaking down the first element, the mechanics of an ETA deal, right? Search, acquire, operate, scale, and then exit if you so choose. So the first one is really about searching for a business. You actually have to find the business. You need to look at the different opportunities. You need to evaluate. There are so many different websites that are out there for buying and selling businesses. I'll put a couple on the screen and in the show notes. But that's the first step, is really just search, right? So once you have your thesis in mind, once you have an idea of how you want to go about this, you start looking, you start searching for available businesses. The second step is really around acquiring the business. Once you now have decided, hey, again, spend some time doing the work. We'll dive into a future episode about how you can actually do that. But once you have your foundation, you understand the model, you understand the different components, searching for the business is the first step. Then you now can start looking at acquiring. So an equity stake, right? Or some sort of financing structure that allows you to get ownership of the business. I've seen different models where it can be a mix of equity, seller financing, maybe getting a loan from the SBA, but you have a different set of opportunities or a different combination of ways you can acquire the business. Once you now have ownership, you've done the financing, you've structured it with the current owner, you've had those conversations, everybody's comfortable with the terms, you now are in a position where it's your baby. So you can either operate the business or you get somebody that you find the talent to actually come in and actually operate this business. It does not have to be you, right? You can be the one structuring the deal, putting things together, but it does not have to be you that's actually running it. If you are trying to buy a business, let's say you are based in the US, you're looking to buy a business at home, maybe it's in Accra, you can find a local operator, somebody who actually understands the market on ground to stay and run that business, right? Or you can ask the previous owner, they can potentially support you or help you in that. But generally speaking, you stay to operate the business or you find other talent that can help you run and operate the business. And then the last thing is scaling it. You're in this game because you have a particular skill that can help you grow the EBITDA. So you want to scale and exit. You want to grow the EBITDA. You want to expand it to new markets, potentially do a roll up, right, into a bigger platform. So there's so much opportunity in terms of scale. And this is now the fun part, is how do you actually get this business operationally efficient so you can be reducing cost? And then how do you actually now increase revenue? You've acquired this business, you've done the work to actually get it into your hands, you structured the financing, the terms, all of this, and now you get to scale it. And some people then go on to exit. So if part of this for you is not necessarily to do it forever, but potentially to exit down the line, that's also an opportunity and hopefully something you've also aligned on, right, with the owner. Okay, so now you might be thinking, that sounds too easy, because you're right, it's more than 4 steps, and there's actually quite a bit that goes on, but this is meant to be an introduction. So there are different roles you can actually play. There are 5. The first is called the searcher. So you actually run a search fund and you look for the businesses to buy. So you end up being in a position where you raise money to actually do the search. You look for businesses. You find the people to then run the businesses, but you're not running. You're just doing the searching and raising the money to actually acquire. So that to me is really interesting, right? The next role you can play is called the operator. So this one now is you are the person running the business. You can do the search and be an operator, right? Or you can just be the searcher. Or you can just decide, you know what, I don't actually want to figure out all this stuff about raising money. I actually really just want to be the operator. I want to take on a role, get some equity out of this, right? So you can also do that. This might mean you, if you're running a business, on the continent in Africa, you might be moving back or partnering, right, with somebody. But the idea is that you are really replacing the current CEO. The third role you can play is the connector, right? The advisor. Maybe you are living in the US, but you want to leverage your connections on ground to wherever home is. And you're actually just connecting people. You're potentially the one helping to connect buyers and sellers together, which is called a broker, right? A business broker. And business brokers generally get paid fees based on making successful connections. And so that's completely a role and a great way to get started because it helps you understand and learn different parts of the market that you're trying to work in. And so being a business broker is a great way to get your feet wet and get involved. The next role is now the investor. So this is the fourth role. You can put money into search funds, people who are actually doing the work to find the buyers and the sellers and make those connections, people who are raising the money, to invest in the actual businesses that are being acquired. So you can be an LP, you can be the limited partner, the investor who's putting money in, getting money as a result of the cash flow, equity growth. And the last one is really just being a diaspora bridge. So you partner with someone, you help provide market entry, you help provide partnerships, you help provide pipelines. So you're the well-networked person that gets paid, right, to actually help the operator increase their business or the search fund owner, but you're that connectivity person, that market entry, right, person who is helping the business actually expand. So these, to me, 5 different roles you can play: the searcher, the operator, the broker, the investor, or the bridge. But then the question is like, okay, how do I fund this? If you're somebody who actually wants to do this, how do you actually fund this in such a way that it makes sense? There are search funds, right, where you can pool capital from the diaspora, high net worth individuals who want exposure, but they don't really want to operate it, right? So say, for example, I am going to raise a fund. I'd say, hey, these are the kind of businesses, wholesale, distribution, trade, retail types of businesses in these specific agro processing areas. I'm raising a $10 million fund, a $5 million fund, a $2 million fund, whatever it is. And I raise the money from diaspora, I raise the money from high net worth individuals, people who want exposure but don't want to operate. Remember the roles we just talked about. Then there's seller financing, right? So owners who actually work with you to finance the deal, where they're willing to say, hey, if you're willing to help me, take this business on, you're willing to help me grow it, I'm willing to give you some money, some cash flow to actually help with the transaction. I'm willing to contribute because they want the business to actually survive. So they end up figuring out a way to finance maybe 30 to 50% of the deal. Then there's revenue-based financing, right? So instead of actually bringing cash flow in, I say, okay, I'll work with you to increase your revenue by 20% in the next 12 months. If I can do that, I want to leverage some of that revenue to actually finance the deal, the sale. So we'll put some of that money aside, and some of that will now be used to actually facilitate the transaction between you and I to sell it, right? So that's revenue-based financing. Then, of course, you can use local banks, right? You can use DFIs, the small business administration loan I was mentioning before. You can leverage that too. You go and get a loan from the bank, and that loan now helps you facilitate the sale. Or you can do a syndicate. You can pool diaspora capital together, and a group of 5, 10 people can put the money in, decide how you're going to run it, and you can create an SPV that's specific for a particular sale, and you can finance it that way, right? So again, the ways you can finance this are search funds, seller financing, revenue-based financing, DFIs and local banks, or SMB loans. And then you have diaspora syndicates, right? That can also help you. So why does, again, any of this matter? It's an overlooked opportunity for many of us who are looking to build wealth, who want to have some level of financial freedom. You don't want to go and build a whole startup. You don't want to stay stuck in your corporate career. You're looking for an in-between. There's such an opportunity here, especially because of also where the market is. But then think about what you're also doing. You're preserving a business that has made some sort of impact in a community where they have created jobs that are now going to continue to run. It unlocks just new opportunities for us to generate wealth while preserving and protecting what that business has meant to its community. So again, $1 trillion more opportunity with the number of businesses that are for sale. So I am excited to continue breaking this down in new episodes and future episodes. The bridge opportunity is clear for how we can connect economically and integrate ourselves economically between the diaspora, Africa, across emerging markets, leveraging entrepreneurship through acquisition. Join me on the next one. We're going to keep breaking it down.